My name is Stephanie Rogers, and I am the Executive and Artistic Director of the Anderson Center at Tower View. Today, I'm happy to be speaking with Dominique Mueller, who lives in Lake City, about her creative practice. Dominique, welcome. Could you introduce yourself and tell people about your background and the medium of art that you make now?
My name is Dominique Mueller. As you mentioned, I live in Lake City, but I work in the Twin Cities. I work for Target Corporation as a design director, and I've been there about 15 years. And in my career has spanned everything from fine art, teaching painting at the St. Louis Art Museum, to 3 corporate jobs, 10 years at my merchandising company, designing women's apparel, to JCPenney's, leading as an art director over apparel and home and hard goods products. And now 15 years at Target, very focused on being an art director, as well as a design director for children's apparel and home products. And now kind of next chapter, moving into inclusive product designs, which is really about building the methodology, resources, and training to elevate our design teams so that they can develop design and develop products that are inclusive of our guests, regardless of cultural and ethnic diversity, gender fluidity, our aging demographics, and then mental and physical disabilities.
Wow, that is quite a resume. Congratulations on your new position. It sounds like you'll be able to make a lot of impact in that role.
Thank you.
How did you get started in this? When did you first know that you wanted to go into a creative field, and how did you get from being maybe a kid interested in making things to where you are now?
Definitely the stereotypical kid loving to make things. Everything from sewing to sketching to drawing to painting to sculpture. Love 3D art because of the ability to think 3-dimensionally and more holistically about art pieces. And so it did as much of that as possible as a kid. I took every single art class that was ever offered through my years of junior high and college, and still wanted to make a career out of that. Back when I was in college in the 90s, very early 90s, not so much direction as far as what creative careers are really out there. So it's really a path very focused on fine art. I went to Washington University in St. Louis because it allowed me to major in fine art at a reputable art school, at the same time attend a highly reputable medical school, because my parents were very set on me following a very traditional Vietnamese career path of medical school. So it was really one of the few schools that I could do that, very local to where I live. I grew up in Ferguson, Missouri. So it allowed me to live at home, attend college, follow these 2 paths. And it was my second year in college when I ran into the dean of the fashion design program. And he explained to me that it would be very hard to have an income or a career majoring in sculpting, which is what I was doing at the time. And the perspective he presented was, if you really think about fashion design, it is 3-dimensional sculpture with the application of surface design as you think about textile fiber design, and then creating a pattern and wrapping it around a form, the human body, and thinking through how it moves, how it interacts, and how it makes the person feel and engages them. So I found that absolutely fascinating. And like I said, I was living at home, working 3 jobs to put myself through college. So the idea of having a paying career that I could still be creative and be able to storytell and impact people sounded fantastic. So that's how I ended up graduating with a double major in fine art with an emphasis on fashion design and a pre-medical degree. But yeah, so that's from an academic background. That's kind of how it started.
And then what happened?
I got married my junior year in college, which makes it really hard to run off to New York and be a fashion designer. Married a local boy, Southern Illinois, from a small town. So, at that time, the only place to work in the design industry in St. Louis was May Merchandising. They had just moved down from New York a few years prior, and they were just starting their design department. So having that painting background, I was still teaching at the St. Louis Art Museum at the time. They had a position in textile design, which I'd never heard of. It was not taught at the college level, but it was essentially painting and creating artwork that was then digitized and produced into fabric. And so that's really where I learned to take my skills in painting, understand how to apply it to a form, and then how to merchandise it, making sure that you have a collection that meets multiple needs, that connects to different outfitting solutions for guests. And I did that for almost 10 years at my company, specifically to the areas that you would imagine has a lot of surface design: women's dresses, women's swimwear, a lot of ready-to-wear blouses, dresses, the things that you think, where the color and print and pattern moves the product, and it's an emotional purchase. So really that connection with the guest. So I did that, like I said, for about 9 years there. And then in that last year, really moved into management of artists and designers before moving on to Pennies to essentially do the same thing, but on a broader scope for my category. A friend of mine had recently left May Company as a trend director to be a trend director at JCPenney's and start the design area. So he had contacted me and asked if I wanted to come assist in that evolution of their design process and creating an entire team of artists to really meet kind of the same service needs. What that allowed me was to go beyond women's apparel and really think through the entire home market. So that included everything from when you think about the soft textiles and beddings and windows and rugs and decor, to paintings on a wall from a home standpoint. It also opened the door into men's and kids, which I hadn't really had much interaction with. And that's a completely different set because you're not designing for the necessarily, let's say, the parents. You're actually designing that kid's point of view, what makes them happy, what makes them safe. How do you build an environment for them that is inspiring, that is really around kind of their needs and their interests, which is very different from what a parent's perception of what it may be. So really a lot of learning, a lot of growing as an artist and a designer there before I came to Target 15 years ago. And that was really, again, just the ability to reach a broader audience was as large as Target is, and the following that it has. I think that's where it moved from being very much a business to more of an art and science. I think about design as a balance between art, science, but then empathy. And that was the biggest, I would say the biggest component of the decision I made to come to Target, being able to reach broader audience and be able to service underserved communities more so than what I was able to do at Pennies, where it was definitely more of a business, a sales, bottom dollar business driver.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, please. My understanding is that Target has this kind of a corporate philosophy, adopted some of the ideas from the Bauhaus of total design and integrating good design into everyday life at a low price point. So what you're saying makes total sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's how do you bring joy to every guest in their everyday life. So it's not just about the moments of celebration. It's like we've been talking about this a lot. It's like Pride shouldn't be celebrated once a month. Black History Month shouldn't be celebrated once a month. It's how do you make the lives of everybody easier every day? How do you bring that joy in that every day? And a lot of that is keeping it affordable. When you think about currently our guests is over 70% of our guests make over $100,000 a year. Well, you're missing a lot of America and what they need. When you think about the national average is $75,000 a year as far as household income. In Minnesota, it's less. It's in the 60s. And then I think about the small town where I live in, and it's closer to the 50s. Mm-hmm. So, the ability to bring style and joy to folks of every social and economical level is definitely that empathy side of it that I want to make sure I'm able to really be a part of.
So you shifted from doing maybe more hands-on design work yourself to managing a team. Mm-hmm. How do you think about that shift? How does it use different parts of your creativity And are you still getting to do some hands-on design, or do you think about your role differently?
I definitely still do a lot of hands-on design. That may be more of my leadership philosophy than necessarily a corporate philosophy. I just believe that you need to have gone through the same experiences yourself and continue to develop the same skills yourself to be able to really give the right direction to your team. So I spend a lot of times in the trenches and making sure that everybody has work-life balance. And that may mean, in order for that to happen with all of my team members, that sometimes I'm spending time doing some design work as well. In fact, I was just doing quite a bit this week so that everybody could take off for the 4th of July weekend. But I also think that keeps me relevant in what I do. And then that drives the respect that the team has because, it's like not coming from an empty place as far as experience and relevancy. So I would say, that's how that has sort of manifest. How I view the leadership portion of it is, for me, it's more of a coaching than it is a leadership. There are definitely points where absolutely when you're managing across and you're managing up, you flip the switch on leadership, and that it can be a little more flexible, but absolute at some points. With my team is definitely more of a coaching. We're more like a little family where we're always standing each other up. We're always teaching and training each other. Having a younger workforce, they're always teaching me. Sometimes I need tips and tricks on how to do something. And then what I bring is more of the 28 years of experience, in the design industry of like, hey, have you thought about doing it this way? I tend to ask a lot of questions or pose a lot of questions to them to help them come to the conclusion based on what they may be, reconsidering from me, from other partners that they're working with in their cross-functional teams. So I really look at it as more of a coaching and a mentorship. And because of that, usually when I switch or leave teams, I keep those relationships. So I have a lot of mentoring relationships within Target that I meet with monthly. And again, that goes back to, it also keeps me in tune with the teams, in tune with being relevant and what's going on in the design industry and that's what everybody is needing.
Do you have any advice you would give to a student who wants to go into the design field?
I think today there's a lot of weight on how you arrive at your, solutions, proposals, portfolio, whatever it may be. If you're working on a design challenge, the solutions that you're proposing, if you're working on your portfolio and getting that ready, the stories you want to tell within it. I think how you arrive at that requires so much more research and understanding today than it did, when I graduated school. When I graduated school, it was very much understanding what was happening with trend services, what was coming down the runway, what's happening in the art community. A little bit more narrow of a path. I think today you need to understand all of that, but then you also need to understand where people are at. And so that means really understanding pop culture. It really, understanding what's going on social media, what's going on in, across our nation. It takes all of that to build solutions, regardless, like I said, of a design challenge or your portfolio that shows that you have this holistic understanding of what it takes to be an artist and designer today. So I would say like spending a lot of time in that research portion is really going to help you elevate your work so that no matter who you're showing it to, they will have some connection point to it. I think that is the biggest difference now. It's not about making something that's pretty. It's about making something that's going to really deliver a message and help move people.
That makes sense about meaning, and also as you were talking, I thought a lot about similar to what you're talking about, the ability of corporate America to have a huge impact on a lot of people, thinking about how pop culture, popular distillation of something can have so much more reach. Even one example that comes to mind for me is the film Daughters of the Dust has only recently been getting more attention now, partly because it was referenced in Beyonce's Lemonade videos, which were seen by so many millions of people. So those are there's a lot there, and I don't think we have time to go into all of it on this call, but those are really interesting things for me to think about, and I think our audiences will be interested in that too. Are there long-term goals that you think you're working towards as a creative professional that you maybe don't feel like you've achieved yet? You've done so much. I don't know if that's even a fair question.
I would not have guessed, 30 years ago when I started getting into this, that it would have pivoted, to where it is today. So I think it's almost like it's opening a whole different set of doors that I never considered before. So it's almost like my hopes and dreams in a creative world has now shifted to be something completely different. So I would say, kind of those old kind of aspirations that I used to have as far as the reach, like, yes, that's there and that's, accomplished. The ability to work with a multitude of influencers and makers in this country. I've been able to do with a lot of the design partnerships, regardless if it's with a celebrity or an organization. So I feel like those things are there. I think this whole thing around inclusive design, which is what this new role will be for me, is something I never thought would be possible. It's not that I didn't hope for it someday, but I think when I'm a refugee, so I'm not, first generation. And I grew up in Ferguson, Missouri, which is, is highly racially, an area of racial tension in this country. So not to say that at some point I kind of gave up on being able to make an impact in some of this space, but I kind of did, right? Because we've been talking about this as a nation. It's not that the racial inequality is new. It's been so embedded in there, but now there's this like positive attention that will actually make change. So, the thought of being able to play in this space and be able to help move things forward in this space, like, never even came into the scope of my wishes and goals before, because I kind of thought it would never happen. But because how things have changed, I would say, like, I'm hopefully going to be able to make this, kind of last portion of what I want to be able to achieve before I retire happen. And I hope the momentum doesn't die, right? Doesn't die down. I mean, we see that a little bit right now already within social media, that a lot of us are trying to keep this messaging going, with remembering these people's names and with the Black Lives Matter movement. But, with as much intense things that are happening every single day, like, are some of those things going to die down? And that's what I'm hoping, is that the momentum is kept up so that the resources are there and the intent is there. Because I do believe that, from what I've seen and experienced, that it's going to be up to a lot of corporate America to make these changes now. A little too hard to rely on, our government, which seems so divided right now, that really, if a lot of these big corporations like, Facebook and Amazon and Target can really work together to make some of these change, then I'll be able to kind of like check off these last goals that I've never thought would be possible. But it really is around keeping that momentum going. That's going to be, keeping it front and center, not letting a lot of the other conflicts really cloud it.
That's such a powerful message, and I really join you in hoping that the momentum continues. I think it's been building since 2015, if I was going to pick a point. And even going back to that idea of a pop culture distillation of really important ideas. I think about Will Smith saying, racism isn't getting worse, it's getting filmed. Mm-hmm. Itself, a paraphrasing of some work by Ta-Nehisi Coates. So congratulations on your new position. I'm really impressed by the way that throughout your career you've continued challenging yourself and pushing towards the next level, and happy to have you as part of the artistic community in southeastern Minnesota, here along the Mississippi River, and I wish you all the best in your new role.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for letting me kind of share a little bit about my journey and where I'm hoping to go next.
This has been a video of the artistic response team of Red Wing, which is a collaboration between the Anderson Center Art Reach Red Wing Arts, the Sheldon Theater, and Universal Music Center. Thanks so much to Dominique for talking with me, and please keep us posted on what's next for you.
Thank you.